Hello, I'm Bill Klauber, and let's talk about life. Today we continue our discussion of the facilitated mentoring program that many in the life insurance industry believe will help us beat our retention problems. Our focus will be the MDRT Gamma Mentoring Program. Joining us on the program today, Margo Murray, who is the best-selling author of Beyond the Myths and Magic of Mentoring. She's also the president of the Managers Mentors Incorporated. Welcome back, Margo.
It's a pleasure, Bill.
Joel Shapiro has been with the New York Life for 39 years. He's an industry leader, and we're anxious to hear what he has to say about mentoring. Joel, thanks for coming.
Well, thank you.
Cecil Rosen is also an agent with New York Life. Compared to Joel, she's relatively new to the business, and we're looking forward to her comments on the mentoring program. Cecil, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Joel, let me begin with you. You're a busy man. You've been involved in all sorts of industry activities as well as running a most successful practice. What made you decide to get into the mentoring program as a mentor?
Well, somewhere down the road, about 35 years ago, someone did a nice turn for me. I was mentored, not in the official program that we know today, but someone allowed me to walk in the door and sit down and try to pull me up when I was down and listen to my problems, and that was something that always stayed to me, and I always believe what goes around comes around. I, in 1970, had this idea of mentoring. I didn't call it mentoring, but I went to my home office and tried to convince him that I thought one of the opportunities of keeping people in the business was to immediately hook up a brand new agent coming into the business with a veteran. It was a mentoring concept. I didn't even really know what it was, and I didn't know how to really explain it that well, and it kind of said it was a great idea and nothing ever came about it. So I've been kind of on the warpath to get something like this going, and I have a real interest in succession planning or successor agent program, and I think the two are really dovetail each other, and I'd love if we could have some time to discuss that. Because
I would like that too.
Great, if we can. I think it
Joel,
might be helpful.
Don't let us forget somewhere in this 27 minutes, because I would like very much to talk about that, because it is so important.
Yeah.
Margo, you've worked with the public sector, you've worked with Fortune 500 companies. You heard what Joel just said, of course. Is this sort of typical in how mentoring programs evolve?
Well, I think Joel and I must have been on the same wavelength, because my first public presentation on mentoring was in 1971 in Rochester, New York. So we were probably both thinking about a concept of, from our own experience where we were helped, and how could you facilitate that just enough to make it matter for more people than the accidents that happen. So yes, I think that all of us, and especially the managers and executives who are supporting it for their organizations, are doing it because of their own life experience, number one, and because they truly want to make a difference in someone else's life. And obviously, there is the bottom line in every organization in terms of cost effectiveness of this type of development.
Cecil, you are an aspirant.
Right.
You've been in the business about 5 years. What made you decide to go into this program?
I wanted the program to help me be more successful and get to a newer and higher council level. I wanted to learn from more experienced people how I could better myself in the industry.
Has it been working that way for you?
Terrific.
So
Yes,
you're pleased with your participation in the program?
Oh, yes. I'm going to stay in the program, and hopefully one day I will be able to be a mentor and help others.
Like tomorrow.
Okay.
Margo, is this also fairly typical that somewhere along the line there's a transition from protege, as I think you call it in your book, to mentor?
Actually, it happens more quickly than you think, because in today's work environments, there is a critical need for multi-skilled people. And almost every one of us brings some experience, life experience or skill that someone else could gain from. And sometimes we've worked with organizations where they experimented with having people be a mentor in one relationship, a protege or an aspirant in another one at the same time, to see if that would be successful. The only constraining factor there is the time and energy of the person to work on his or her own growth and development and to help someone else. There's no other reason why you couldn't be both at the same time.
I think maybe it would be a good time to explain that Joel is a mentor, Cecil is an aspirant, but you're not a team together.
No, we're not.
You're in different offices, and but Joel, how did you select, or how did someone select for you the aspirant who you are working with?
Well, my situation was a little different. I was sitting one day about 3-4 years ago and talking to a friend of mine, and he said, "What's going on with you?" And I said, "I need a junior Joel." After, you know, at that time, 35, 36 years in the business.
What'd your wife say to that?
Well, I have 3 sons, so I guess we do have a couple of junior Joels. But after 35 years, Bill, you know, you've been in the industry for a long time, and I have 4,000 or 5,000 policy owners, and I cannot possibly get to communicate with them, see them, and whatever. So I really was looking for someone to come in to join with me and do some of the legwork to help me set the table. And so I was referred to this agent who had been in the industry, who was floundering, and I spoke to him and we introduced him to the New York Life, and he came over, and it was with the hope that he was going to be potentially an associate. So I ended up mentoring this gentleman. And I might admit on this show that it wasn't that successful, and I hope that doesn't hurt this show, but not all of them is successful. I mean, there are certain key ingredients of a success, and I'm not sure that, you know, where it went wrong, but it didn't. I mean, we're still buddies, except our objectives were different, our goals were different. We were geographically compatible. My office was down the hall from him. A lot of the good stuff that you got to have going, but the chemistry of the two, we were 2 different types of people, and I think hopefully we could discuss that issue too, of how you try to set up and line up different successors and aspirants. So that's how I got started, and I've been mentoring for many years, not officially. I love to take someone under the wing. It's a nice
Well,
feeling.
I'd like to comment on...
Yeah, please do, because I know I'm going to ask you about it, something that I read in your book too.
Yes. Well, I think that one of the reasons why that may not have been as successful as you wanted it to be is something that we do encounter a lot. When we choose our own protege or aspirant, we tend to look for someone that we think is very much like ourselves, and that results in cloning rather than developing the other person. So one thing that I would look for in that relationship is, to what degree did the aspirant drive his or her, I don't know which one it was, own development process? Because it seems to work best if the aspirant's development plan, in terms of objectives or skills or experiences that are wanted, is the criterion for the selection of the mentor. And as to the chemistry, our experience is that that doesn't matter very much if you do some things to learn about similarities and differences in work style and make a conscious choice that we may not fall in love, we may not even like each other socially, and yet we'll determine what we can learn from each other and make this work.
Well, thank you. It's time to take a short break, believe it or not, but I hope you'll all stay with us for our discussion on mentoring, and we'll be right back. Well, we're back with our guests, Margo Murray, Joel Shapiro, and Cecil Rosen, talking about mentoring. Cecil, let me ask you about your relationship with your mentor. Joel mentioned that his original aspirant, and it wasn't successful. What's your experience?
A1.
A1.
My mentor has been terrific, very instructive, very encouraging. His experience has helped me a lot. When I first asked him to be my mentor, I found that I was able to become calmer in my goal setting and my ambition to make the round table. Because I was calmer, I was able to achieve more.
Did you know your mentor before? As far obviously, you said you went to it's a him.
Yes, it is.
You went to him, so you had some familiarity with him. But had you worked with him before?
I never worked with him, but every so often when we met, he was encouraging and said I should stick to it, and I'll be all right.
And when you did go to him, he was obviously agreeable to working with you?
He said to me he thinks I can make it, and he wants me to be his aspirant, and he sees no problem.
He's obviously right.
Well, and that's the point I was trying to make, is that when the aspirant seeks the mentor, they're more likely to be looking for someone with skills and experience that they want. And mentors tend to want to pass on what they know and don't always look at that from the learner's point of view.
Well, we've talked about the fact that mentoring has been around a while. You mentioned back in 1970. I think you said 71. And in our earlier program, you went back to the Greeks and blamed it all on them. But let me ask now, Cecil, is there a lot of paperwork involved with this? What do you have to do to get into this relationship?
For me, I had to sign a couple of forms, get my managing partner to sign off on it, and we were in.
Okay, and earlier, Don Lawson, who was chair of this committee for MDRT and Gamma, mentioned psychological tests that, to measure the compatibility of the mentor and the aspirant. Did you go through that?
I don't think I would have passed any test. So I had no problem with any testing. He just believed in me when I turned to him. And
that was the acid test.
yeah.
I'm curious, Cecil, how did you discuss expectations with your mentor? How did you describe what you expected of him? How did he describe what he expected of you?
I said to him, I really want to get to round table, and if I go in as an aspirant, that's fine. I want to make that table. And I said, please help me.
Okay,
And the first thing he did was, let's set some goals.
terrific.
Let's see what you need to do a month. Let's see what your daily activity has to be. And he said to me, he wants me to report back how many phone calls, how many people I see, what are the results of the daily activity. He also taught me how to chart my goal setting. What's in the works, how much money is already paid out in the way of commission, and chart my production. He has been terrific. The program really works.
I'm so jealous. Mine failed and yours was successful.
So the only paperwork was around your own objectives and goals and plans, and then what you expected of him. So that doesn't sound like it was cumbersome.
I don't see what kind of paperwork was involved. A couple of forms I committed to the program. We kept in touch. He looked at my activity. We were able to discuss any cases I was working on, any difficulty. He was there for me. He was encouraging.
How frequently do you
Wonderful.
meet with your mentor?
We either meet once a week or touch base on the phone. And the fax machine really works.
Joel?
You know, Bill, you said earlier, I think, to start the show, that what does our industry, or I like to call it a profession, have to do to help the retention situation? I mean, we've been around long enough to know that it's probably the #1 major problem in our profession. And the agency system is always under attack because 1 out of 10 new neophyte agents can make it after 2 or 3 years. And we've got to do something about it. It's clear that if people mentored people like Cecil, that some of that problem would not be there. And one of the major problems I think that young agents, and I don't mean young in terms of, you know, years old, is the activity. Most young agents don't have activity, and through a mentoring concept and perhaps working, you know, with an experienced agent, the experienced agent can show them how to look at various files, how to look at various orphan leads, which is another significant problem in our profession. And there are zillions of policy owners that are not being serviced today. And we wonder why they buy from someone else, because I'm not calling thousands of people. I just don't have the physical capability.
You mentioned you have 4,500 policy owners.
Yeah, I mean, they're not all clients like the three of you are, but they were, you know, mass sales that I've made over the years, and we're in voluntary payroll deduction programs and employee benefit plans. And, you know, I probably have 1,500 to 2,000 policy owners that I have grown with, serviced, and so on. Some have outgrown me, some I've outgrown, some just gone elsewhere and moved and whatever. But the mentoring concept, and I admire you for getting this and really taking the ball, is a win-win for everybody.
It is.
It's a win-win for a young woman like her to give her a career. Without a mentoring program, she probably would make it anyway. I think we can understand that, but she'll make it a lot quicker, and she'll be more productive by being an aspirant. Someone like me, regardless of who that aspirant would be, after 38, I'm kind of bored in the business. You know, it's not that I don't like it, it's just that you do the same thing all the time. But when you have young people that are growing, that's kind of a fun feeling. And it's also someone that could assist me. My company is better off for it, because we in turn are bringing on someone like Cecil to fill my role when I'm gone. The profession is much better off. And the most important person is the policyholder.
Absolutely.
They're the
Fewer
ones
often
serviced.
policy owners
Fewer often
looking
policy
for
owners.
service,
So
no
it's a win-win from everyone's concern, and why this profession has not grasped this mentoring concept a lot sooner.
Well,
it's been just a disappointment to me, because I've been talking about it for years, but not in the formal way that Margo has developed it through her books and seminars. It's just an instinct that I had.
You mentioned, Joel, a very important point, and when you said that it's kind of a refreshment to you. LUTC moderators for years have said that it helps rejuvenate them to work with younger agents and to remember their days and maybe remember some of the things that were successful for them in their personal production that they've moved away from. Cecil, you're an LUTC fellow. That, in a way, is a mentoring program, too, isn't it?
Right. It has been very helpful.
Yeah.
Yet I needed a mentor, because I always want to grow. I always want to grow.
Well, if you would hold that, Margo, we're going to take a short break, and then we'll be back to continue our discussion on mentoring. Hello, we're back with our guests, Margo Murray, Joel Shapiro, and Cecil Rosen, talking about mentoring. Margo, I had to interrupt you when we took our break. What was it that you wanted to say?
Well, I think both you and Zisel were talking about what's in it for the mentor, and I think it's important to look at that because none of us will continue to do something that doesn't have some rewards or reinforcers. And what we find is that the mentor's productivity often goes up, as does the aspirant or protege, because mentors do their best work when they know that someone is watching them. And I wanted to say to Joel that he talked about being 39 years, proudly so, in the business and just recently started to think about succession planning. And it is my belief that every person, no matter where they are in an organization, should always be grooming 2 or 3 people who could take over that position should you decide to go off and fish in the Bahamas someplace or do something else, and that should be a regular part of every manager, every business owner's plan, is to do that sort of early preparation so that you don't lose the momentum of a successful business.
Joel, you wanted to talk
Yeah.
about that. That's a good lead-in for you.
It's a great lead-in. There's a little bit of a difference in the corporate. I think I've always heard as a successful manager is one that prepares for someone to take a position. I just had an appointment this morning with an executive, and we were just doing some key man insurance on 5 or 6 different people. And
Key person insurance?
Key person.
Good.
Thank you.
Gotta be proud. You
Absolutely.
Just look to your left and look to your right.
These happen to be men, but it is key person insurance. And he said to me, I really don't need it. And I said, why? And he said, because I've already replaced. I'd like to introduce, you know, the new attorney, general counsel will be taking over. And, well, fortunately, we're going ahead with the program on him because there are other reasons. But getting back to your question, our business is obviously much different. It's a relationship business. And that's why succession planning to me, aside from the fact that it would be wonderful to capitalize on what I have built up my entire career, I mean, to die or become disabled and leave the business involuntarily would be horrible in itself, but not to be able to have something to take with me aside from my pension, and which is very handsome. It would be nice to be able to capitalize.
But think of the bench strength that you could build by helping someone else to acquire the same skills, and in a shorter period of time, the experience that you have gained, so that your clients would truly feel like that relationship was going to continue that you'd built with them.
Well, that's exactly my point. You said it better than I. So that's why the mentoring concept of mentoring someone like Zisel or someone else that I might mentor is ideal to get a running start, so that when we work together, when I would leave the picture voluntarily or involuntarily, there would be someone there that could transcend the relationship. I have a relationship with my clients. They love New York Life, but most of them don't even know the insurance company they bought from. They bought from me. Zisel is dealing with her customers, and while they love the New York Life and they know they're financially in a quality company, they're buying from her. They trust her. That's the bottom line. So when we step out of the picture and someone strange comes in through these successor programs, which I have been successor of 2 or 3 different New York Life agents, and it took me a year or 2 to warm up to these people before they would trust me. So therefore, the mentoring program starts off where it doesn't necessarily end up as a succession program, but it could. And if it does, it's a home run for everyone, because the mentor has someone that can eventually take over the business. The aspirant has an additional source of business that they can pursue. The New York Life has got policy owners that are happier because they have someone they've been familiar with. The profitability of the contract, the business stays on the books.
And as you said before, the policy owner is the ultimate beneficiary.
Exactly. That's the bottom
It's
line.
win, win, win. And Zisel, you're much too young to think about succession planning, obviously. But let's get back to the mentoring program that you're in. Tell me a little bit.
I'm not too young to become a successor agent.
Well, that's for sure. And Joel, I'm sure, got that message loud and clear. But let me ask you, when we're talking about business and transferring of business, talking about commissions, in the mentoring program, when you work with a mentor, is there a commission split? Or how do you work that?
It's a good question.
I don't share commissions with my mentor. He guides me enough that I am enough knowledgeable, enough experience to go out there and close the case.
Okay.
So
Cecil,
for
does
me-
your mentor ever go out with you?
No.
Okay.
No.
I think that would be, I would encourage that, but of course you're taking time for the mentor, but can I respond to your
Yes,
question?
please
If I
do.
will. I think it's naive to think that the typical mentor-aspirant relationship is not working together in some financial way. I think it would be, if the mentor is going to be involved in a case and do lots of work, I certainly think that the mentor should be compensated for that.
That's one of the challenges that MDRT Gamma faced, I think, early on in terms of some guidelines for when they did some pairings across agencies. And I really admire them for facing that because
There are guidelines, and the guideline that went well before, I believe, the mentoring GMA program was that there are generally 4 pieces of a case, and each one gets 25%. For instance, you need a prospect. Now, Cecil may have a business person who she'd love to approach, not sure how to approach it. If she would ask to work with me on a joint basis or ask her mentor to become deeper involved in that case, she would be entitled to that 25% because it's her prospect.
Okay.
Then the person that does the case preparation is entitled to 25%. The person that does the sale is entitled to 25%, and the person that does the service is entitled to 25%. So let's say in Cecil's case, you ask your mentor to assist you in a particular piece of business.
the case preparation, for
Well,
example.
the case. You would get 25 because it's your prospect. I would assume you'd want to continue to service that, so you would be definitely getting that 25%. And the 50% in the middle, if you both worked with that,
Right.
he or she may get a piece of that 50% and you would. So it may end up to be a 60-40
Right.
piece. That's the way we've generally worked
And
in
I think
general,
that,
and I think it's fair.
as Margo inferred, that is part of the program, the MDRT Gamma program, that there is commission split when you're working together,
real
which
world.
is just natural. We have so much more to talk about, but we have run out of time. And please let me thank Cecil for your participation, Joel for your participation, and Margo for yours.
I've enjoyed it,
Thank
Bill.
you all for a very
you.
interesting program, and I hope all of you have benefited from watching this show.